kind enough as always to join us on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Alex, thanks for coming on. Spring training is upon us, and again, nothing is the same, but at least everybody is down there right now, and you're able to kind of move forward, so that's great news.
Yeah, it's nice. It's always nice at the beginning. You see the guys, and so far on intake, no issues. And, it's been a good first few days of camp, so things have gone as well as we could have hoped.
Well, we know that the rumor mill continues to churn, and I don't know how you want to respond to this, but figured we'd ask you while we had you on. The Athletics' Ken Rosenthal reporting that the Braves are down to less than $5 million of payroll flexibility for the 2021 season. What's your response to a rumor like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you guys know me when it comes to payrolls and things like that. I never divulge the number, just it impacts us in negotiations and things like that. My view on that stuff is no matter what your payroll is and what you have and all that, fans are always going to want more. Teams are always going to want more. You can always add to your team. No teams are flawless. Even the LA Dodgers that won the World Series, I'm sure if, going into the playoffs or going into the season, they wish they had another player here or there. So, our jobs are to make it work. We get a ton of resources from our ownership. Payroll was the highest it's ever been in the history of the organization a year ago. And we continue to get really good resources, knowing full well that attendance won't be what it was in the past because of COVID restrictions and so on. And our ownership and club continue to invest in the ball club. So I've said this in the past, we're not going to be, the New York Yankees or the Dodgers in terms of payroll, but, we've had plenty to work with, and it's our job to try to get us back to the World Series and build a great team.
Alex, the one thing that sort of strikes me, and I'm not sure because we have talked about this quite a bit, you have a very small circle. I'm not telling you that number is accurate, that rumor, report, or whatever the hell it is accurate, but might this be a true opportunity to sit down with people again and just say, hey, we don't talk about this stuff? I mean, I know every once in a while you have to look everybody in the eye who has information like this, and you just got to go, okay, everybody's square with what we do around here and what we don't do around here, correct?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the one issue if you start to address all the rumors, right, then you could start to piece together, well, he denied this one, he didn't deny that one, he kind of was, he didn't really commit one way or the other to the other one. And then you guys start getting a feel for what's real and what isn't, right? So if I stay consistent and I just leave it be, from my standpoint, competitively, that's probably the best thing. I mean, look, I will say this just to shed a little bit of light. We backloaded Ozuna's deal for a reason, right? I was very transparent about that. Most contracts are pretty straightforward, and I'd say for the most part they're pretty evenly spread unless you're signing an arbitration-eligible player to a long-term deal and then you scale it up. But we did that by design just to create a little more space. Things happen. You have needs. I've been very transparent as well that our payroll will be lower than it was in 2020, pre-COVID in terms of that whatever that prorated amount would have been. So, knowing that, that's not to complain or create excuses. That's just trying to be transparent across the board. So, look, we have, like I said, we're always going to have challenges, but every club does. And that's why that will certainly frame at times some of the decisions that you make. But at the same time, we continue to get unbelievable resources. And I can't stress enough that, I've only been here 3 years. I'm going into my fourth year with the club. The ownership gave us, Terry McGurk specifically, the highest payroll we've ever had in the history of the organization. And the Atlanta Braves have won a lot and won World Series and been in a lot of World Series. So I've been given more than enough to do my job, and it's really on me to give SNIT a good team to go out in the field with.
Alex Anthopolus, GM, president of the Braves, with us on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. The last time you were on with us, we talked about the possible extension for Freddie Freeman. We also know that Brian Snitker and the staff are working on the last year of their deals. Are those some discussions that are taking place right now?
Yeah, those are all things that I expect to get done. We always take care of the player stuff, the roster stuff, because spring training, we need to have players on the field. Obviously, employees that are under contract, players that are under contract, we have more time to deal with those things. But those things, they're not like players. Everybody, I believe, enjoys being here, and we've never had any issues being able to keep staff here. So I expect that to continue. We're really pleased, obviously, with everybody that we've had. We've had so much success. So, and I expect, obviously, guys like Freeman and so on, MVP, face of the franchise, that's expected to get asked that same way that I got asked about Ozuna beginning of the offseason as kind of our key guy. And, you just don't know the timing of these things. But, the one consistent thing I think everyone can say is both sides want to be here, want to continue the relationship long term. When those things occur, how they occur, that just takes time. Just like I could not have told you that we would come to an agreement with Ozuna in the month of February. I had no idea when, but I could have told you in September that after a month that we had him, that we were going to want to keep him long term. So I think that's the bottom line with these things. Love these players, want to keep them here, and the goal is going to be certainly to be able to do that.
I know that you always come back with, and rightfully so, that it's manager's decision. It's not your job. You're not putting a lineup together every day. But we had a conversation yesterday with no DH, and let's just say it's no DH in the National League. Have there been conversations about Freddie maybe moving back to third, Ozuna hitting fourth? And again, I know it's manager and night to night, depending who the pitching matchup is. There are things that can change the lineup. It's not 1978. It's not 1986 where things are set in stone and everybody just says that's what it'll be tomorrow. Without a DH, does it change perhaps the mindset of how you work the lineup this year?
I know Snit, has talked about it. He put Freddie in the 2-hole. It's interesting. The two times that I've been with clubs where we put elite players in the 2-hole, they won the MVP. So Josh Donaldson did not start as the 2-pole hitter, 2015 with the Toronto Blue Jays, but we had Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion behind him. And he won the MVP that year. And obviously, Freddie did not start in the 2-hole. And both times, the manager made that move and decided to do it. And, they won MVPs both times. So, my attitude on this stuff, and again, I'm not a big I don't get involved with the lineup and things like that, specifically because there's times that players are very particular about where they hit and where they want to hit. And, that's part of what Snit has to do. He has to manage that clubhouse, manage those guys. I've said this before. I do not want somebody going into his office, knocking on the door and saying, why this? And he says, you know what? You can hit the elevator. You can go upstairs. Alex's office is right down the corner to the left. Go talk to him because he made the call. So he makes those calls. He makes those determinations. Generally speaking, from my standpoint, similar to what I was asked about Acuna, I think two years ago, I'm a believer in the best players. Move them up as high as you can to get them the most at-bats. I know that's a really simple way to take a look at things. But, look, if he's hitting 2-3, he's going to get plenty of at-bats. And Snit will, get a feel for the clubhouse, the room. He'll talk to the players. And he's made all the right calls when it comes to our offense and being able to win year in and year out. So I don't have any doubts he's going to make the right call.
Can I ask, do you think it's a coincidence, though, that those were American League examples? Because last year was American League rules here, where the 2-hole is a little bit different with the DH in baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I know Snitz brought that up, and that happened in the AL. I mean, you look I know not everyone's into the stats and the numbers and the data, but some people will tell you your best hitter should hit 2, right? But then you got guys like Mookie Betts leading off for the Boston Red Sox, or Acuna doing the same for us. The game has changed, right? So, I mean, the way I view it is instead of having 9 bats, you have 8. And I know obviously the 9-hole turns over to the guy hitting 1 and so on. You only lead off once. You're only hitting second really in an inning. There's a lot of scenarios you do, but I guess it's really only at the beginning of the game, right? So you don't know how the game's going to go. So, just overall from my standpoint, I'm just about getting guys as many at-bats as we can.
Yeah, what stinks in the National League? It's the stupidity of the DH. Even getting to those guys, let's say for a 5th time, rolling them over when you have a 9-hole that, quite honestly, has been dead. I need my 8-hole guy to be good enough where it's just not 2 spots in the order, because I got to get to those guys as often as possible to get them the most at-bats possible. It's the goofiness of the DH on top of everything else. I can't get to my best hitters as easily as an American League team can.
Yeah, I mean, look, I will say this. There's some value without the DH. There's some value to the 8-hole. I know guys don't want to hit there necessarily, but, Dansby Swanson early in his career hit 8-hole. I've never asked him this, but it struck us that we thought maybe the fact that you're hitting 8s and the guy behind you, they're not really going to throw you a whole lot of strikes, and knowing that they got the guy behind you 9, and it'll force you to make sure you don't chase and you don't come out of the zone and do some of those things. And the decision was made. I believe it was 2019, early in the year, with Ozzie Albies. He was really scuffling, really aggressive, chased like crazy. And I remember he was brought in, and it was discussed. And it's not that he was an 8-hole hitter, but to try to get him back where he needed to be and being a little more selective and so on. Hitting eighth was probably going to be a good thing for him. And to his credit, again, nobody wants to be moved all the way down to eighth, but he had a great attitude about it, and it really turned his year around. He really started to slide in terms of his OPS and things like that, and then it started to climb back, and he ended up having a great year.
Alex Anthopolus, President, GM of the Braves, with us on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line. Take us behind the scenes a little bit, because you've talked about dealing with the media. You like to be present more when things aren't going well and kind of stay out of the way when things are going really, really good. Is it the same way when you talk about dealing and touching base with Brian Snicker and the coaching staff as well?
Yeah, I try to pick my spots. I look at it the same. I try to equate it to my job, right? There's going to be times I make a mistake, trade for the wrong guy, sign the wrong guy, and I think, I haven't asked Terry this, but he doesn't come into my office every day and blow me up and why'd you do this and why'd you do that? I think just with his years and the success they've had here, he understands. He's been a great boss for me to have. He understands that I'm not going to bat 1,000, and you need that. And the same way with Snit. Is every move going to be right? Is everything going to turn out? And I pick my spots. It would have to be something, real specific, something that's maybe happening over and over again that maybe we need to address as an organization. And I'm sure Terry feels the same way about me if there's certain things that need to be addressed. But, I'm available. I'm there. I stay in touch. I actually feel like, and, my old CEO with Toronto would do this, when things are going really bad, let's say, I don't want to jinx us, but you lose 8 in a row, 9 in a row, that's when you actually need to be the opposite and be more upbeat and crack some jokes and keep your chin up. And, players feel it. You want to be the same guy day in and day out. And you don't want to do your job scared. You don't want to walk on eggshells. And I try to do that with all of our department heads, whether that's in player development or scouting or the office. You don't want to breathe down someone's neck, and you want to be supportive. And people have to be allowed to make mistakes. They can't make mistakes all the time, but they have to be allowed to make mistakes. And ultimately, because I made plenty, and I will continue to make plenty. But when those people you report to give you that support, it'll make you better as an employee long term. In my mind.
Yeah, don't make plenty. Bring it down to
exactly.
Plenty is not
worry,
good for anybody.
If I do, someone else will be on this line in a year or two.
I wanted to do some homework last night and actually ask you about a guy that's not being talked about, so somebody can talk about him. I'll ask you about Kyle Muller. Certainly got a body. I mean, he's on your 40-man roster. Can I just ask, generally speaking, since nobody really talks about him?
Yeah, he's got a great arm, huge, great athlete. The arm strength is unbelievable. He's got a pretty good slider, and he's developing a changeup as well. So we were looking for opportunities to call him up last year, and I kept going back to the alternate site. And, he was getting close, but he just wasn't over the hump yet. And we just didn't make the move to call him up, but we wanted to, and he was getting really close. He just needed more time. So we still brought him with us. We had him in our playoff pool and so on in case just he had a need or he continued to develop. But, we're hopeful that at some point, especially now that he's on the 40, at some point during the year, he's someone that we see up in Atlanta trying to help us win games. So the stuff and the upside is huge. I think the development of the changeup is going to be big for him as well. Yeah. And we're really excited about him long term.
Can I ask who? I know it's an organizational decision. I guess the reason I brought him up, projected as a starter, but at some point somebody might go, well, hold on, what about the bullpen? And I'm not saying a conversation that hasn't happened, and you're going to actually spill it all on the table right now. But I've always been fascinated by that conversation. Like whose eyes, when you're trying to judge a guy's heart, you're trying to judge his ability to bounce back if there's a tough one, as opposed to waiting 4 days. I don't know what you want to say about him now or a guy like that when an organization has him, but how many guys were involved in the decision to say, you know what, he will not serve us best here, he'll serve us down there, and down there might be the bullpen?
I'd say for almost every young arm, generally speaking, you'd rather them start as long as they can. The reason is you get more innings, you get to work through stuff during the game. You come in for an inning, you may only throw one pitch, it might be a quick inning and so on. Out of the bullpen, you're not throwing sides in between. So there's real value to being able to start. Obviously, you can't have everybody start. But even if you project a guy to be a bullpen guy down the road because you don't think he'll have enough command and so on, you still want to try to get them starting as long as they can just to get all those reps. In terms of when they get up here to Atlanta, generally speaking, in an ideal scenario, I'd love to break everybody in out of the bullpen just to get all the firsts out of the way. Your family's there, your buddies are texting you, emailing you, just, your knees are shaking and all that kind of stuff. And just to get a quick inning out of there, just get it all out of the way, settle in, and then, hopefully get some reps, learn to attack. I know that Max Fried talked about, the value of being in the bullpen and so on. And, you look years and years ago, a lot of guys would break in out of the bullpen. And just because of needs and so on, we don't do it all the time now. But I do think there's real value if you can to get a guy's feet wet out of the pen. And then over time, you'll find out how a guy can do in the rotation. But I guess I would say the following. I think the big thing is people talk about mentality and so on, but starting, relieving, and so on. If you're a guy that's going to walk a lot of guys and really struggle with your command, out of the bullpen, you're coming in for an inning, your command isn't there, the manager can get you out of the game pretty fast. If you're starting that game and your command isn't there, they got to ride it out because they don't want to go to their bullpen in the first or the second and so on. So they will try to get every inning they can out of you because they don't want to crush the bullpen. And that ultimately, I'd say most times, is what will ultimately determine whether you can stick. Now, you may throw strikes but not have a third pitch and so on and not have success. But, there's a lot that goes into it, but I do think throwing enough strikes is pretty key.
All right, I'm trying to figure out a way to ask this. We brought up the bullpen. There's a piece that isn't here in the bullpen right now. Are you surprised that maybe you're an arm short right now with that piece no longer being here? I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
No, go ahead. Who you getting? Go ahead. Fire. You don't have to hold back. You could be more specific.
Well, I don't know if you could talk about him because he's with another team. Mark Melancon. Did it surprise you that he left, and he left for the amount of money that he left for?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about guys that were here in the past. I don't know how much I can get into free agent negotiations and things like that. Obviously, he was great for us, great in the clubhouse, great in the bullpen, did a fantastic job for us. I think generally speaking, we made some tough calls. We lost some really good players and guys that, we loved having on this team. Melancon, O'Day, Duvall. Those are really good players, good guys that were a big part of our success. So ideally, you keep guys all the time, right? But obviously, as you're trying to put a team together, you have to make some tough calls sometimes, whether you're just trying to give guys opportunities and so on. And, I could tell you this, that, when we signed Will Smith, he had been the closer with the Giants that did a great job for them. We didn't know what would happen with Mark going into the last year of his deal. But, part of the thought was that, Will, we love the fact that he can use him in the 6th, the 7th, the 8th. And that's why Mark was going to continue to throw in the 9th because he had done a great job for us. But we knew that if Mark left, we had a guy that we felt absolutely could do the job for us. And, when you can build your bullpen from the back out and you can establish roles, especially at the end, which we feel like we have late inning guys now with Chris Martin, Will Smith, A.J. Minter, Tyler Matzik specifically. Those guys last year were legit late inning guys for us. And then all of a sudden, some guys you're bringing into camp, some of the young guys that come in, they might really emerge for you and really make you have a really deep bullpen. So we've got guys with upside and stuff, guys that had down years. But you always want more guys in the bullpen. You always want more depth. I've said this as well. I do not want to be in a position at the trade deadline to have to add bullpen. It's a tough spot to be in because every team in the game, every contending team can afford to add it and can make room. But, we like the upside that we have, and we feel like the back end is pretty solid right now.
So to follow up on that, how quickly do you make changes if it doesn't look like a guy is comfortable in a role? Because you have bodies. And by the way, it's not 60, it's 162. I think the least talked about thing this year is when you're talking about bullpens. That was a 60-game season. It was a different 60, no doubt about it. But it's 162 again this year. So you're going to have to throw bodies at your bullpen situation no matter how good you are in your rotation. How quickly do you move guys out? Well, he doesn't really look like he's comfortable in the 8th inning. Doesn't really look like he's that guy. That closer didn't work. Is it a couple of times? Is it a couple of few? You don't want to throw him in the trash. I get that. But is there an urgency to find roles in April and let's just say May?
In my mind, and again, I don't want to speak for Snit, but I think generally speaking, once the closer is set, that everything falls into place because then it depends on the game, how you line up and so on. Because we have Martin from the right side, Minter and Matzik from the left, I think guys will have a good idea when they're going to be used. And if you ask players, the bullpen guys, they just want to have a sense of when they're going to be used. In terms of being uncomfortable and so on, I feel like if you're good, you're going to get guys out, whether that's the 6th, the 7th, the 8th. In terms of the guy who's going to get the ball in the 9th, I do think that's somewhat important. Guys always want to have roles and so on. In terms of how quickly guys get pulled from roles and whatnot, obviously Snit makes that determination. But, I think once the 9th is locked down, the rest basically takes care of itself.
Last one. When you look at a guy like Jake Lamb, who's, and I'll say only 30, he's only 30 years old. Did somebody in the organization look at him and go, fixable? Like, I'm assuming somebody has to say that out loud, right? If you're going to, and I know it's not a lot of money, but does somebody in the organization take a look at something and go, fixable? He's only 30. He's still got good baseball left in him.
Yeah, so look, I would say we've done this in the past. Obviously, we look for upside plays. You'd love to get the established player that should be a slam dunk starter on some other club and end up putting that guy on your bench. But at the end of the day, you have to decide how you're going to allocate all your money. And we look for some upside plays, and we've had some success. You could say it's luck and so on, but being able to build a bench at the end of spring or right at the end of the winter and so on. And I would say this: we also we have an exercise that we do as a front office group that we basically have everybody play GM during the winter. And what I mean by that is we'll have everybody in our office basically give us a trade free agent presentation. They know who's available and so on. They know what we have to work with. And they'll identify the elite guys and talk about that, and they'll present it to the senior group, and we'll get feedback and we'll talk about it and so on. And Lamb is a guy that came up in two of the presentations that we had. As a guy that made some swing changes when he went to Oakland. So are those going to stick? He performed really well when he went over there. We identified some changes with his swing. We think there's a chance that those are going to stick, and that was part of his success. That's not a guarantee. If it was, we would have obviously done a really long deal. So, but he's been a really good player in the past. The work we did on the person, the makeup, the work ethic was great. And, just seeing him the other day, I asked him, I said, hey, we noticed some things, and we're going to show it to you. We meet with all the players before games start in camp, and we basically break down what our thoughts are, what we think they can get better. I say, we noticed some changes you made in Oakland, and can you tell me a little bit about it? And he said, yeah, I did, and by design. And you want to hear the player explain why and why he thinks those changes helped and what the impact was. And was it just a fluke? Is there something to it? So, we're going to take a shot. We think there's some upside there that we can get the Lamb that was an all-star. And, obviously we're excited to have him.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything after we let everybody play GM. I didn't hear one word after you said that. Because it's like a pitch meeting.
Don't you guys do the same thing?
It's like a Hollywood pitch meeting.
Same thing, Alex. We do it for a living. We play GM every day.
You guys get to do it for all sports.
That's
you guys
right.
are like Brian Jordan, Prime Time, Bo Jackson. You get to do it for all of them.
And we get to spend money that's mythical at times, too, on top of everything else. Money. No, but I'm serious. It's like a pitch meeting. You have your younger guys come in and throw a pitch meeting out.
Yeah, because you know what? I don't get to spend a ton of time with them. We obviously have a big staff. I know as a young guy, I would have loved to have sat down with, you're sitting there with your buddies as a young guy, and you're like, I wish we traded for this guy, and I really want us to sign so-and-so. And, we open up we pull back the curtains, and we tell them exactly what's going on in trade. We don't open up all of our trade discussions to 25, 30 employees. But, for something like this, we will tell them, hey, these are the main things we're working on in trade. But we'll tell them, look, you get to pick who you like, who you don't like. We don't want to influence you at all. Tell us what you think of the club. Tell us. And they don't have access necessarily to all the stuff that we do in terms of health, makeup, and so on. But I think it's a good exercise for them, and we learn a lot too. And also, it opens my eyes to our employee. And I come away with some guys saying, wow, this guy's got really good feel. He might be 22 years old, but wow, this guy's got tremendous feel and really good upside. And, I just think it's something good from a development standpoint.
Well, how about how you carry yourself? You're eyeballing how that is. He's got a little moxie. Does he have balls walking into this room? Does he walk in like he owns it, or does he walk in mealy-mouthed? It's like Thanksgiving dinner. I had an Uncle Nick who would determine who sits at the adult table, who sits at the kids' table. You're bringing guys up to the adult table.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot of really bright individuals, and good ideas can come from anywhere, and that's whether it's player development, scouting, and so on. So, you wish you could spend time with everybody and so on, but, it's especially when you're trying to put the team together and you want a fresh set of eyes. We talk to the coaches all the time, obviously talk to Snit all the time, everybody around the team, but some of these young employees that we have in the office that are grinding away. They might see something that we're not seeing. So we do, 100 hours of these, and we get one really good idea. Fantastic.
Alex, as always, we appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk soon.
Sounds a little too good to be true. Is what this is the way I'm walking away from this right now.
Alex Anthopolus, President GM of the Braves, with us on the Loud Security Systems Newsmaker line.